In 1916, a group of doctors and scientists spent 2 months deliberately swallowing capsules filled with human excrement and injecting each other with blood from dying patients. And one of them brought his wife. This is the Filth Party experiments. Welcome back to the laboratory, my curious test subjects. Today we are diving into one of the most disgusting and genuinely brave experiments in medical history. The kind of experiment where the scientists became the subjects, the laboratory became a chamber of voluntary horror. And the goal was to prove something did not exist. Not to discover a cure, not to test a treatment, but to prove that a disease killing thousands of Americans every year was not contagious by deliberately exposing themselves to it in every imaginable way. They ate it, they injected it, they swabbed it on their skin, and when the medical establishment still would not believe them, they invited their own spouses to join. This is the story of Dr. Joseph Goldberger, Pellagra, and the Filth parties that changed medicine forever. Let us begin. In the early 1900s, a disease called Pellagra was tearing through the American South like a plague. It started with skin lesions, rough, scaly patches that looked like severe sunburn. Then came the diarrhea, then the dementia, then death. By 1915, Pellagra was killing more than 10,000 Americans every year, most of them poor sharecroppers and mill workers living on cornmeal and not much else. The medical establishment was convinced Pellagra was infectious, caused by a germ, a bacteria, something that spread from person to person like tuberculosis or typhoid. It made sense. Poor people got it. It clustered in institutions. It looked contagious. But Dr. Joseph Goldberger, a physician with the US Public Health Service, was not convinced. He had studied the disease in orphanages and prisons, and he noticed something strange. The inmates got Pellagra, the staff did not. They lived in the same buildings, breathed the same air, touched the same surfaces, but only the people eating the institution food got sick. Goldberger suspected Pellagra was not an infection at all. It was a deficiency, caused by a lack of something in the diet. But how do you prove that to a medical community that has already made up its mind? So how do you prove a disease is not contagious? In experimental medicine terms, that means you need to expose yourself to the disease and not get sick. Think of it like proving a myth wrong, except instead of busting a rumor on the internet, you have to eat human waste in front of your colleagues. Not exactly the kind of experiment you can get past a modern ethics board. But Goldberger was willing to try. In 1916, Goldberger designed what he called the Filth Party experiments. The concept was simple and absolutely horrifying. He would collect biological material from Pellagra patients, excrement, blood, skin secretions, nasal discharge, and expose healthy volunteers to it in every way possible. If Pellagra was contagious, the volunteers would get sick. If it was not contagious, they would be fine. And who exactly volunteers to eat human excrement for science? In experimental medicine terms, that means Goldberger had to find people willing to risk their lives to prove a point. Spoiler, the volunteers were mostly Goldberger and his friends. Volunteer 1, Dr. Goldberger himself. Volunteer 2, Dr. George Wheeler, his assistant. Volunteer 3, another physician. Volunteer 4, his wife, Mary Goldberger. For 2 months, the Filth Party participants subjected themselves to a rotating menu of biological horror. They swallowed capsules filled with dried peregrine feces. They injected themselves with blood drawn from dying Pellagra patients. They swabbed throat secretions from infected patients onto their own throats. They mixed peregrine skin scrapings with their food and ate it. Imagine a dinner party where instead of wine and cheese, everyone passes around capsules of feces and syringes of infected blood. That was the Filth Party. Goldberger even swallowed sodium bicarbonate, baking soda, with every capsule to neutralize his stomach acid. Why? So no one could claim his stomach acid killed the infectious agent before it could infect him. He thought of everything, every variable accounted for, every objection preemptively addressed. If Pellagra was contagious, this experiment would prove it. And if it was not, well, Goldberger was about to have the worst 2 months of his life for nothing. Almost. But here is where it gets stranger. Why did they treat Mary Goldberger differently than the men? According to her own account written years later, Mary insisted on being a volunteer. She wanted to participate. She wanted to prove her husband right, but the men would not let her swallow the capsules of feces like they did. Instead, they gave her an injection, 7 cubic centimeters of blood drawn from a woman dying of pellagra, injected directly into her abdomen. 7 cubic centimeters is about a shot and a half of espresso, except instead of caffeine, it was blood from a dying woman. A nurse who watched the injection fled the room crying. And here is the baffling part. The injection was actually more dangerous than swallowing a capsule. Injection bypasses all your body's natural defenses, straight into the bloodstream or tissue. Swallowing, at least, gives your stomach acid a chance to kill anything harmful. But somehow, the men running the experiment thought it was more proper to inject a woman with infected blood than to let her swallow a pill. In experimental medicine terms, that means they thought gender mattered more than science, because somehow injecting infected blood into a woman's abdomen was more ladylike than swallowing a pill. For 2 months, the filth party continued. And the side effects were real. Diarrhea, check. Pain at injection sites, check. Unpleasant cramping, check. General misery, check. But pellagra, 0. Not one volunteer developed the disease. Not Goldberger, not his colleagues, not his wife. After 2 months of deliberately exposing themselves to every bodily fluid of pellagra patients, no one got sick. The experiment was a success. Pellagra was not contagious. It was, as Goldberger suspected, a dietary deficiency. The medical establishment had been wrong. And that is how science proved pellagra was not contagious. With 2 months of human excrement, infected blood injections, 1 crying nurse, and a wife who had to insist on being a test subject. All it took was a doctor willing to poison himself, his colleagues, and his own spouse, to prove everyone else wrong. Progress. Goldberger's work eventually led to the discovery that pellagra was caused by a deficiency of niacin, vitamin B3. Once the cause was identified, pellagra was nearly eradicated in the United States within a few decades. Thousands of lives saved. All because one man was willing to eat human feces to prove a point. So the next time someone tells you science is not brave, my curious test subjects remind them about the filth parties. If you enjoyed this disturbing piece of medical history, hit that like button and subscribe for more experiments that make you question everything. Leave a comment telling me which historical scientist you think had the worst research methods. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and maybe wash your hands.